Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am reviewing another great sci-fi novella by the sci-fi great Leigh Brackett. I am reviewing the Blue Behemoth. I read this in an ebook format, so I don't really have anything good to show you in terms of a book. I will show you the ebook cover right here, and I have been reading Leigh Brackett for a while now. I was first introduced to her when I read a novella that had been nominated for a Hugo called The Jewel of Boz, as well as reading her Hugo, I believe it was an award winner, if not award winner, a finalist, The Long Tomorrow, and I fell in love with her work. I really liked her novellas, and since then I have been reading through a number of her novellas that are available on my library's Hoopla app. There are plenty of them out there and I love all of them and I want to keep reading them. I have a lot of my reviews of her work in a playlist, and The Blue Behemoth was another one that was up on the list, so I decided to give it a read. So this is a little under 50 pages, at least in the version that I read. I believe it was 48 pages, so the book reads quite quickly. And I'm going to touch on the plot a little bit, but due to the size of the book, I feel like I can't get too deep into the plot without just telling you the whole story. In The Blue Behemoth, we are following a circus, a baroque circus, a rundown circus by the name of Shannon's Imperial Circus. They have been touring the galaxy, doing different entertainment shows, but you get the vibe that things haven't been going well for them financially, and they have been kind of down on their luck as a circus. Our narrator is an individual named Jig, who is going along with the owner, and I assume the reason of the name of the show, Bucky Shannon, and they are having some drinks, having a good time, but they're also a little stressed about the nature of their circus. When a man approaches them with a very suspicious offer, hey, here's a lot of money, you come to Venus and do a couple shows. Obviously, this is a little suspicious because of the amount of money that they're being received and the fact that their circus isn't really that great, but they decide to go ahead and go perform on Venus. In Leigh Brackett's worlds, I find that Venus is usually a habited planet, and it is that swampy, marshy feel that I feel like some older sci-fi characterized Venus as. I believe it may have had to do something with the way people thought Venus was before there was scientific inquiries below the clouded environment of Venus. I believe that had something to do with it, but I find that it's very prevalent in older sci-fi, that kind of notion. And there was something in this Art of Sci-Fi book that I read recently that discussed that. But I really do like the idea that Venus is a marshy place filled with life, and so they're going to go tour it there. There is another problem, well, there seems to be a lot of problems with the circus, but a big problem is their star show, which is a creature called a Canson named Gertrude, who is this Venusian big creature that's basically the extent of the description that we get, who I believe is this Blue Behemoth in question, is acting up, and the handler of the animals says, I believe she wants a mate, and she's crying for a mate and she's starting to act up. But Bucky Shannon is just seeing dollar signs and says, let's go, let's perform this show, just keep the animal under control. Of course, when you hit Venus, as predictable, or as you may have predicted, the circus wasn't just there for entertainment. The people who hired them actually had an idea that maybe Gertrude or their Canson would be able to draw out the elusive male Canson from the Venusian swamps, and that is kind of the kicking off point for the rest of the novella. The plot kind of moves along quite quickly, but I think there's a couple things I want to discuss with regards to the plot and Leigh Brackett's writing style. The first is the narration in this. Obviously, this is told from a human's perspective, or someone who's running in the circus perspective. So their idea is that these animals are working creatures, they are there to make money, they are there to advance the circus. And the narrator Jig is obviously biased. When things start to get out of control with Gertrude, with their big Blue Behemoth, their creature that they have, the narrator's perspective is that this creature needs to be under control, the creature needs to be stopped. But I feel like when I was reading this novella, I had a lot of sympathy for the circus creatures. This is a creature that's been taken out of its environment, it is being forced to perform, and because they're very rare to come across, the circus does have a little bit of an edge because people haven't seen this creature. But the creature's being taken out of its natural environment, and it's not being able to find a mate in a male in the swamp environment, which feels a little cruel to subject an animal to. So I personally felt like the narrator had a bias in the sense that he wanted to stay alive and not have Gertrude eat him or whatever was going to happen, is the plot unfolded, be killed by this creature. But also this creature, from my perspective, as maybe more of a neutral outside observer than our narrator is in the story, Gertrude is being, in my opinion, treated a little bit unfairly and is kind of being treated, yeah, like a circus animal. Like when you think of circus animals of old who are just being mistreated to perform again and again and again. So I felt like our narrator Jig had some skin in the game of this entire novella as well, which I don't mind. I feel like a biased narrator is definitely a narrative choice, and I kind of did like it, but as a more neutral observer, I felt bad for Gertrude as well, this creature that has been caught up in this whole environment. Now I want to discuss Leigh Brackett's writing style. I have been really loving these novellas, and I like the way Brackett writes because I feel like she's able to do a lot of world building in such a so few pages. So in a novella, especially one that's under 50 pages like this one and many of the other ones that I have read, she's still been able to build such a great world environment, despite the fact that by virtue of the length of this story, the plot is going to have to take focus. So by virtue of the fact that we're reading a novella, the plot to move along is going to have to take a lot of center stage. There's a limited number of words the author is working with, but Brackett is able to also build an environment. I feel like when I'm on Venus in her stories, I can feel Venus. I feel like I have a sense of the world and the environment, and we're not just focusing on the plot points, although there is a heavy focus on plot. I feel like the one thing that does maybe get dropped a little bit is character development, but in 50 pages, how much character is there to develop in the story? There was one sector, Last Call from Sector 9G, I think was the title of that, where I felt like maybe there was a little bit more character development, but also I'm not going to fault a novella for not having strong character development or great world building. I think that telling a plot or telling a good story in a novella is really, from my reading perspective, the focus. Can you tell a good story? And if you can do some character development or if you can do some world building in that time as well, that's kind of a bonus. I'm getting a little bit extra for my money's worth. I really have been promoting novellas to people recently. I know a lot of people are busy and a lot of people don't have a ton of time to read, or they're new to reading or new and returning to reading. Maybe they read a lot as a kid and they want to experience different authors and different styles, but they don't really have the time commitment to sit down with a 300, 400, 500 page book, or even a 250 page book. Or if they do that, they're sacrificing discovering other authors as well. And I have been reading more novellas, particularly stemming from my Hugo Award reading challenge, where I'm trying to read all winners and finalists for the Hugo Award for novel and novella. And since reading those novellas, I realized that you can really get a sense of a writer's style and discover a wide range of stories without having so big of a time commitment. And I don't want to use this as like, I'm cheating and I'm going to push up my reading numbers by reading novellas. And I feel like that's kind of gaming the system. But if you're truly enjoying a novella, then by all means, go ahead and read 400 of them in a year. It's a great way to experience a wide variety of authors and their storytelling styles and their world building and their characters. And maybe you can pare down what you like in stories. And then if you want to commit to a larger novel, that could be a great way to get into it. So I've been recommending to people who don't have a lot of time, try some novellas, see what stories you like and what styles of writing you like. I've been loving Brackett stories and I've been loving her novellas particularly. My library's Hoopla app, I'm not sure if all libraries have the same Hoopla app. Like Libby I know is specific to a library, but Hoopla, I don't know if that's the same across libraries. I feel like my sisters who all live in different library districts have the same Hoopla options available, so I think it might be the same. Anyways, that is to say, my library has a lot of Hoopla options for Leigh Brackett's novellas, so I'm going to continue to read them. I enjoyed the Blue Behemoth. I felt like this was a great, fun story. I felt really bad for Gertrude, but I felt like the Venetian environment just comes through in her stories and is such a fun little sci-fi romp, for lack of a better term. If you've read the Blue Behemoth or anything else by Leigh Brackett, please let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to receive it. Otherwise, thank you for your support and for watching this video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.